Hello? Oh, fantastic. We have power. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Are you all having a good time today? Fantastic. Well, we have 45 minutes with an amazing actress. Lexa Doig is with us. She's best known for her role on Andromeda, playing the artificial intelligence. She is currently on Continuum, and hopefully she'll tell us a little bit about her role there. And, she's even been on Arctic Air, which is like a non-sci-fi role, which is kind of weird for her. So it'll be interesting to learn about that. So I'd like to join me in welcoming Lexa Doig to our stage.
Hello. Oh, there it is. It's on.
Fantastic. So, Lexa, you've been on almost everything. You've got an amazing career. Tell us a little bit about your role in Continuum. That's kind of looks really cool.
What can I say about Continuum? Because I signed an NDA. and it would ruin the show if I told you everything. It's a change of pace. I really enjoy working on the show because it's got that lovely mix of sci-fi as well as being contemporary, given that it takes place in Vancouver, woohoo, and in present day. And it's interesting. The writing's very smart and it's very challenging and it's all gray areas. And on Andromeda it was very much the good guys and the bad guys, whereas on Continuum it's the good guys might be the bad guys and the bad guys might actually be the good guys.
Do you enjoy the switching from sci-fi to contemporary? And you got a role in Arctic Air?
I do. I actually love the role that I get to play in Arctic Air because it's just normal. And it's one of those things where, I'm wearing natural fibers. I'm not in any kind of like pleather or power mesh. There's no pew-pews going on. There's none of that. And it's fun. I get to play a mom, which is something that is obviously dear to my heart because I am one. So there's a lot to draw from there. And the only downside to it is it films in the middle of nowhere. It takes me an hour and a half to get to work.
Where does it film?
In Abbotsford.
Oh, okay.
Outside of Vancouver.
Anybody from Abbotsford in the audience? Yeah. Well, no, folks, this panel is for you, so we're willing to take questions. Does anyone have questions?
I see a hand. Yell.
She's
I'd love
married.
To, but I am going to catch up on my sleep because with 3 children at home, I don't get any. Thanks for the offer, though.
Okay. Over there.
Mic over to you.
How much fun did you have when you go from playing like an AI who's good to playing Sonia who's a complete badass?
Well, I thought Rami was a bit of a badass, too, in a completely different way. But it is a lot of fun, and it's very challenging because a lot of this stuff is like, especially this year, a lot of the speeches and the scenes that I've had are like biblical in terms of like, I really wish that I had spent some time in theater school to really wrap my head around these sort of, Tony Amendola would say them fantastically, the speeches and some of the scenes that I have and the lines, because they're incredibly almost Shakespearean, because the future's at play, right? So it's this the stakes are incredibly high and you're meeting your Messiah, so to speak. It's a lot of fun and it's very challenging.
One of the interesting things that's happening in Canadian television is that science fiction in Canadian television is just huge. So what's it like for actors? Is it great for actors right now? Yeah.
I think so. In Vancouver, we have some challenges with our present government, and I don't wish to discuss. I just want to say, on Twitter, I've been trying to pick a fight with Christy Clark, our premier, for like 2 months, and she's not biting. Shocker! Anyway.
She may not be premier for much longer.
Yeah, no. Oh, hell no. But if I have anything to say about it, it's great. It is great because the wonderful thing about science fiction, especially for actors, is it is very theatrical in the sense that you have to challenge yourself to think with greater stakes. And they're usually these very big stories where the end of the world is nigh or entire civilizations are going to be destroyed. And it's a great challenge, and it kind of prepares you so that when you get to play a normal part, it's like, this is a breeze.
the gentleman in the Starfleet costume.
Oh, hello.
Hi. I think I can say for everybody in the house that we enjoyed your costumes on Andromeda.
I'm glad you did.
So the question is when you were acting in those outfits, did you find them very hot, very cold, very uncomfortable? What was it like to work with that?
All of the above. In the summertime, they were incredibly hot because they didn't breathe, and in the wintertime, they were kind of cold. They were sort of like sauna suits, funnily enough. So even though you were cold, there was this thin layer of incredibly uncomfortable and quite stinky sweat between you and the costume. And they change the way you move because of their restrictive qualities to them. But the costume department on Andromeda was phenomenal. And those costumes were actually incredibly intricate and took forever to make. That's why you actually don't see a lot of stunt doubles in my costumes, because they could really only make one-offs for me.
Cool, thank you.
That's a really common thing in science fiction shows, that the costumes are horrible, like really uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's this idea that somehow in the future we've forgotten comfort. I don't know, or we wear shiny things.
Yeah, it's really bizarre.
And I'm wondering, at what point does that happen? Like, at what point in our future do we go, ooh, shiny, let's wear it?
We have a question down here.
Great hair!
What was it like working briefly with your husband on SG-1, and then how does it feel seeing him go off working with Eric and now?
First part of the question, it was a lot of fun to work on Stargate, because I'd actually worked with Michael on Andromeda a couple of times before I joined the cast of Stargate. And the hilarity of it is, on a long-running show like Stargate, everybody's sort of friends. Like, even to this day, our kids go to school with Amanda Tapping's kids and Martin Wood's kids, and so, I mean, we all have play dates. Like, I mean, we're over at each other's houses all the time. So it was kind of like just hanging out at your friend's house and then taking a work break. It was quite comic. So that was a lot of fun. And to see him to go off and work with Erica, I love Saving Hope, and they do such a wonderful job. Erica and her husband, David, also, comically enough, live in our neighborhood. They live like a block and a half away from us. So we see them fairly regularly as well, and they're good friends of ours. And I think that Erica is such a wonderful actress. She's got such an incredible heart. And her and Michael make a great team. Yeah.
Down here in front.
Probably the fight scenes. They were so much fun, especially when I got to do the wire work, because I used to be, another lifetime ago, a gymnast and a dancer. So to have to draw upon those skills and just the sheer joy of telling a story through physical action, which is something that I haven't done for years because I don't dance anymore, was a ton of fun and bruising. Although I did get to beat up Michael in a scene, which was loads of fun.
So, question. You guys put your hands up so we can see who needs questions, because we have roving mics.
You have a question over here?
Oh, right over there. Excellent.
Yeah, in regards to Stargate, I know that it got canceled prematurely. Was there plans to continue on the subplot of the redeveloping relationship between Carolyn and Landry?
Yes, I believe there was. I mean, it was interesting because I know they had a ton of plans. I mean, initially, we actually filmed some scenes, Ben Browder and I, where they had sort of started to maybe develop a love interest between Lamb and Mitchell. And those got cut, and I don't know if that's because Michael said, guys, that's my wife. Can you not? To the writers, I don't know. But I think they had like greater issues of, the Ori destroying the universe that they needed to kind of focus on before they focused on the daddy-daughter relationship of Landry and Lamb. But we had started to actually kind of reconcile, and it would have been interesting to see where that went.
Just a question for you. What was your favorite episode of Andromeda?
Probably All Too Human, which, funnily enough, was when I met and worked with Roger Cross, who's now on Continuum with me again.
Another question over there.
Jason X. I think I'm one of the few people who actually really likes watching that movie. Even the genre fans kind of, that particular series kind of set it aside a bit, which I don't really understand. It already jumped the shark so many times. But I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about where that film fit into your career for you, and if you had anything interesting to talk about in terms of the production.
Where it fit in my career, I got the job. Like, I mean, that's the funny thing about being an actor in Canada is you don't really think career, you think, Jesus, I got to pay rent. So you got to, you take the jobs where you can get them. And, the interesting thing about that show is Todd Farmer, who wrote a really funny script. Like, it was very, very funny. And all of us who sort of signed on to do it saw this very funny script, which changed drastically a few times, even in rehearsal. And really were looking forward to doing this. And it wasn't campy. It was actually quite smart. There were all these little homages to science fiction, like Ripley and like just all these really great little one-liners that got thrown in there. And we were having a lot of fun doing it. And Jim Isaac, the director, was David Cronenberg's guy for effects. So the effects on that show were unbelievable. They were amazing. Like all the horror stuff was really freaky and kind of gross, which is what you want for a horror movie. Unfortunately, someone who shall remain nameless but was in a position of power decided that they wanted to get in on the game and started rewriting the script, only they weren't funny. So it kind of ended up not being nearly as funny as it could have been, and I think it probably would have been more popular if we had been able to shoot the script as it was written, because Todd Farmer's script was hilarious. It was absolutely amazing. But I did get to work with David Cronenberg, which was very trippy, because he's such a nice man. And I was looking at him going, where's the weird? I know it's in there somewhere, but he was just a total gentleman and a really nice man.
We have a question over there.
So one of my favorite things about Rami was sort of how she developed more human emotions as the show went on. How much of that did you sort of develop or improv or write to the character, and how much was just written or scripted for you?
From the beginning, Robert Wolf's conception of Andromeda was, and especially AIs in the Andromeda universe, was that they were fully sentient and emotional. They weren't like Data. But the interesting thing is because of the way we ended up shooting it, all of my AI and hologram stuff was shot separately on a different day and without the rest of the cast. So there was naturally a distance that was created, and so I had kind of made this decision that Andromeda kind of partitioned her emotions off into the android, into Rami. And as I sort of talked about that with the writers of the show, they sort of wrote it more that way. But it was very much collaborative. It wasn't like anything that kind of came out of nowhere.
We have a question over there.
Yeah, my question was kind of tying in with the Jason X thing, and which ties it back into Andromeda. What was it like to work with Lisa after having worked with her in Jason X, but now in reversed roles? Now you're the android as opposed to her being the android.
We did the ceremonial tag team and said, smack, your turn. And the funny thing was when we showed up on the set of Andromeda, if you look closely at the cast of Jason X and the cast of Andromeda, you could kind of interchange the actors. And it was quite funny, and thus created, Lisa and I had this long-running sort of joke because we went from one sci-fi show to another about these two, this sort of sitcom with these two tragic Canadian actresses who only work on sci-fi shows called Rumble and Sparks, because the amount of time that we spent with the director calling, and the camera guys are shaking the camera, because we don't have the money to put sets on gimbals or anything like that, so you have to fake it. So you've got, and I'm going to show you, so you've got the director calling, Rumble! Sparks! And you've got to fake it, and you feel like a knob, like you feel like a complete idiot. Never mind when they go, okay, cut, you guys are going two different directions. We've got to have you guys going kind of the same direction. And then it's like this choreographed hot mess. Yeah. But yeah, Lisa's a very good friend, and we had a lot of fun with that.
Down in front here.
Hello.
Oh, Michael, come. Never mind, just shout it out.
You do a lot of sci-fi film, television work. Is that a personal choice, or is it more of a you take the work you can get? You enjoy doing sci-fi work? Read sci-fi? Is that an interest for you?
Actually, I do quite enjoy sci-fi, and it is more take the work where you can get it, because there's a lot of sci-fi that's shot in Canada, but I do enjoy it. So I mean, it's not a career kind of my plan, but the roles are interesting, and I happen to love science fiction because you get to tell these amazing stories, and then you get to do cool stuff, like, you know, fire lasers and be on wires and wear funky costumes that you would never wear in real life. So, you know, it is a lot of fun, and the characters are always incredibly challenging. Like, I remember looking at Andromeda going, okay, she's a warship. Oh, Jesus. Like, and she's not human. Oh, boy. Like, it's quite challenging in that respect. I mean, and even on Continuum, I look at Sonia, and that is a challenge. It's an enormous challenge, because this is a character who has committed some pretty heinous crimes by my estimation, and yet for her they're absolutely justified. That's a big, like, almost moral and ethical challenge for me, to find that part that's that fanatical, to be able to do the character justice. But it is fun. And then I get to go to Arctic Air and bake cookies and just be a mom. That's fun too.
We have a question. That is an awesome costume.
That is an awesome costume.
You are awesome, Rami.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry. Talking about stories. Have you ever read the fan fiction surrounding any of your works? I'm really curious for your thoughts about some
I
of it.
haven't, and I'll tell you why. Because somebody pointed out, this is not related to me in any way, but somebody pointed out something, slash fiction? I'm assuming you all guys know what I'm talking about. And somebody pointed out, or printed off actually, I should say, and sent to Michael. For those of you that don't know, I'm married to Michael Shanks, who was on Stargate SG-1. But they printed off these slash fiction of his character and Richard Dean Anderson's character. That was, I know these men. Like, I don't need this visual in my head. Because it's a bit discomforting. Like, I'm like, some things can't be unseen. So I haven't. But I'd be really curious, because here's the thing. I mean, yes, it was a gay tryst. Not that there's anything wrong with that, between my husband and Rick. But it was very well written. What do you say? Like, you know, it was very well written.
Over there?
Hello.
Hi, camera guy. The last season of Andromeda. A lot of other sci-fi shows have kind of tried to do the stuck on a planet, can't get anywhere kind of idea, which my personal opinion didn't work. Andromeda's final season I thought was spectacularly done. You guys, you created drama, you created this sense of desolation and isolation, and you know, for me as a viewer, I worried about your characters. Are you really going to be stuck there? What's happening to you guys, your friendships and all that? How did you feel about that last season? Being trapped on.
Okay, I'm really embarrassed to admit this. I vaguely remember the last season of Andromeda because I was pregnant with my daughter at the time. And so, as much as I tried to sell them on the idea of a pregnant android, which I thought would be really cool, they didn't bite, shockingly enough. And given the girth that I gained whilst I was pregnant, I'm kind of glad that they didn't. So I wasn't in that much until the very end, when after I had given birth and had to go back to being in pleather and doing fight scenes and breastfeeding. It was, and Peter DeLuise, I have to point this out, Peter DeLuise would not let me leave set to go pump milk because he'd be like, the girls, they're huge. No, we gotta shoot that. Because I would literally grow like about 4 cup sizes in the space of 2 hours.
This is why Canadian science fiction is so popular.
Yes, exactly, because of the growing breasts. Like who can do that in a day? Only in Canada. But it was really interesting. I mean, like I said, I don't remember much of it, but it's interesting to hear you say that you really liked it, because I either hear that people loved it or people hated it. So it's kind of interesting to me.
Any other? Anybody?
Bueller.
This is down here.
Woohoo!
Okay, so I'm kind of curious, having action figures of yourself, how is that played in just in life with your kids, playing with them, or other people on the show
I
having
don't.
them?
I just want to point this out. Michael has 2, okay? So he's got various and sundry kinds of Daniel Jackson things, and then because he played Hawkman on Smallville, technically the action figures are Hawkman. They're not actually Daddy. But of course the kids are running around with Daddy action figures everywhere. And my kids actually looked at me one day and they were like, Mom, how come you don't have an action figure? And I'm like, shut up, just shut up. Most people don't, okay? Just so you know, most people don't. I'm not a lesser mother because I don't have an action figure. You just go play with that.
I would recommend just getting a hold of one of the ships and say, this is Mommy.
Yeah, sure. I'll try that sometime because yeah, this is mommy.
Is it weird? A little, yeah, it's bizarre. So, how did you get your role in Andromeda?
I auditioned, and it was quite funny because my audition for the part was a three-way conversation between the AI, the hologram, and Rami, which I had to learn all three different parts, and then do do the scene 3 times with the 3 different characters. And Robert Wolf's hilarious because he said pretty much from the second you opened your mouth, as soon as that audition was finished, you were the only person that I had in mind for the part. And I said, really, why? And he's like, you were the only person who got through all 3 that quickly. And which was the challenge with Andromeda, the amount of text speak, the way it had to be done, because she was an android, there was not a lot of pausing or ums or, the things that we do when we, natural rhythms of speech had to kind of be absent from her rhythm of speech. That was the audition, and that was it. I did one audition and then did a screen test. Funnily enough, for Becca Valentine, and which I knew I wouldn't get when I met Kevin Sorbo, and I was like eyeball to belt buckle with him. And Lisa Ryder and I had flown out from Toronto together for the audition, and I looked at her and I'm like, yeah, I think this one's yours. I'll just do Andromeda, and yeah, it was kind of funny.
You were also on V. What was that like?
It was fun. I didn't do a lot on V, but I really enjoyed working with Morris Panich. No, not Morris Panich. Morris, what's his last name? I'm thinking of a theater guy in Toronto, but he was awesome. How am I doing for names? It was fun. It was a lot of fun to do. I would have liked to have done more, and especially knowing that my character was a visitor. I think that would have been fun to sort of explore too. But, again, they had slightly more important storylines than mine to focus on.
Well, we're over there. Excellent.
Hello.
Hi. My question is, if you could be any comic book superhero for a running TV show, like a Marvel superhero or a DC superhero, is there one, given your background as gymnastics and dance and whatnot, have you ever thought about this, that there's maybe a superhero you'd like to be if you could have your show like that?
I don't know if she's a superhero, and I'm pretty sure I'm too old to play her, but I would have loved and would love to play Death from the Sandman series. I think she's one of the coolest characters, and I love Neil Gaiman's his whole take on the Sandman series. Although, Wasp would be cool too. Hello, Avengers. I'd like to see her in the next Avengers movie, regardless.
There you go.
Hello.
Hi. Was there any apprehension in coming in playing Lamb after Frasier, just because there was such a connection with the fans had with Frasier?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because Terrell is an amazing actress and did such a wonderful job with Janet Fraser. And Janet Fraser was this beautifully well-rounded, just lovely, warm character. And Heroes, funnily enough, part 1 and 2 is probably my favorite 2 episodes of Stargate. And it was so heartbreaking. I was actually bawling when I watched the first cut of it. I made a decision that I wasn't going to play Janet Fraser. And I'm not afraid, and I actually quite like playing unlikable characters, because I think that there's a challenge, like these are layered characters. And so given that I knew some of the backstory in regards to Lamb and Landry, and plus the fact that they hired me, and I reckon I look a little young for my age, so to be at that age, head of a secret medical facility, to get to that place in your career at that age, I reckon that you have to give something up. And in Lamb's case, I figured it was social skills. She had to, she didn't really work on her bedside manner. So I didn't try and fill Terrell's shoes because they were very big shoes to fill.
Over there.
Hello.
What is the conversation with your kids like when they turn on the TV and like, oh, hey, mommy's a doctor, or oh, mommy's shooting aliens? Is that? And
they don't watch our stuff ever, like never. I mean, the funny thing is I tried to get them to watch Andromeda, and they're like, I don't care. My son watches Star Wars and Mythbusters, and my daughter, even though I tried to get her to not, watches the kind of those really irritating Disney shows. So they don't really care. Although it was very funny, they did want it. I actually had to. They're not allowed to watch Continuum, just because I think the subject matter was going to sail over their head anyway. Plus, there's a lot of violence on the show. But Saving Hope they watched because they know Erica, And it was very confusing for them. They kept saying to me, well, is Daddy going to wake up? Is Daddy okay? Is Daddy going to wake up? And I'm like, guys, you spoke to him on the phone 20 minutes ago. But they didn't, and because Michael was away, because we were in Vancouver and he's in Toronto filming, it was a bit difficult for them. So Michael and I actually kind of made a decision that they won't watch Saving Hope unless Michael can actually sit with them and watch it. But again, the subject matter sort of sails over their head. They don't really care.
So you're currently working on Continuum. What else is next for you?
Motherhood. That takes up rather large chunks of my time. Probably Arctic Air. I know it's been picked up for another season, so I got a call from the executive producer, Gary Harvey, saying, we're back! So that's going to start filming, I think, in August. But I'm not in every day on that, so I have a recurring part, which is great. That's kind of it for now. I see a hand from the great hair! You know, I can't tell you. I was about ready. So for those of you that don't know, I right before Michael left to go to Toronto, my son was giving him a guilt trip about taking him to a hockey game. So Michael bit the bullet and spent rather a large chunk of change to get us great seats to the Canucks game. We were 3 rows. So we went early, we watched the warm-up, and as I'm holding Sam on my hip so he could see, bing, a puck comes over and beans him in the head. This is my, at the time, 6-year-old son, who was, sobbing and crying and all this other kind of stuff. I wanted to take a stick and jam it up a hockey player's rear end, sideways, because I was so mad. And they didn't even come and sign it. I don't even think they knew, actually, funnily enough. But I don't think I can avoid being a Canucks fan because it didn't even, my son was the one who got hit and he was still cheering for the Canucks. Because he's hockey obsessed like his father.
Is there a difference between working on TV in Toronto and working on TV in Vancouver?
Not really. Sets are sets no matter where you go. I mean, I found that when I moved to Vancouver, everybody was a little bit more chill and relaxed. Toronto can be a little bit more of a stressful environment. But, if you ask Michael, he'd say that the crew in Toronto is just as chill and lovely as any crew that he's ever worked with in Vancouver. And snow. There's snow.
There's snow.
Toronto. Yeah, not a lot in Vancouver.
Hands up.
Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? Oh, there you are.
Down here.
How was it to work with Kevin Sorbo? Like, he's such a character,
Man, I had that question right here.
Kevin is like the captain of the football team, right? So he's very used to being a leader, and he wears it well. And he sets a very good example on set in terms of his work ethic and his professionalism and keeping everything kind of fun and light, right? I mean, I hate to say it, pardon my French, are there any kids here? Shit flows downhill in any environment. So you're number one on the call sheet, your lead of a show, really sets the tone. And he set a very nice, friendly tone to work with. And so for that reason, it was great to work with Kevin. He's hilarious because he's a bit piggy sometimes, but in a really harmless way. So it was a ton of fun. Well, yes and no. Like, I mean, we don't keep in touch, but yeah, we don't. But I don't hate the man. Like, I mean, whenever I see him, it's like, hey, how you doing? Like seeing old friends. But
You were on Tech Wars.
I was.
What's working with Shatner like?
Here's the funny thing. When I auditioned for Tech Wars, which was I have to point this out to everyone. It was like my second audition ever. And so I wasn't used to the audition process. And I went in, and for those of you that don't know, a typical audition process is you go in and there's a reader who's going to read the off-camera dialogue against the dialogue that you've had to memorize and learn. And then there's a camera. And so there's somebody operating the camera so they can tape this. And occasionally you'll have the director or producers in the room as well. So this is a normal audition. I walked into the audition, there was no camera. There was the casting director, William Shatner, no reader, and me. And being young and inexperienced, it didn't occur to me to ask who was going to read my off-camera dialogue because I was just trying to pretend like I knew what I was doing. So I literally just read my dialogue with big, long spaces of silence in between my dialogue. And I fully thought I blew the audition. So when I got the part, I was kind of shocked and screaming because this Captain Kirk, man, like, come on. And he directed me, and it was great because he's a gentleman. He's an absolute gentleman, and he really knew what he wanted to shoot. He had a really interesting vision of the future, which was why he cast myself and a Toronto actor named Richard Chevalot And Richard had I think it was a Mandarin accent, and I had a Southern accent because, as Mr. Shatner explained, that in the future he just figured everybody had kind of mixed everything up. And I like that vision of the future. I think it's really interesting. Oh, hello. Did Shatner make me wear green paint for the audition? No. No. But you can ask Rachel Nichols, who I work with on Continuum, all about green paint because she was the green alien in the Star Wars movies.
So do you get recognized a lot?
I don't, although it is funny when I do because I do and I don't. It's usually, did we go to high school? Like, where do I know you from?
Oh, right.
And then you kind of feel like that douche who's got to go, well, I'm on TV, which you never want to do. And but it was funny because I remember being at the airport and I was at a Starbucks, and I feel kind of bad because I just didn't know how to answer the question. But the guy behind the counter is like, "Has anyone ever told you you look like Lexa Doig?" And I went, "Who?" He said, "Lexa Doig, actress," and I'm like, "Never heard of her." Because I mean, there's no way to answer that question and not be a douchette, right? There's no way to go, "Well, actually, I am," without being a complete dink. So I don't really know how to deal with it when I do get recognized anyway.
What's the most ridiculous fan experience you've ever had?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't think there've been any really ridiculous ones. I've been pretty lucky. I mean, other than the odd bit of fan mail, which has been interesting, particularly the letters from jail. Those ones are fun. Although I have to tell this story. So Gord Wolvett, this is awful, and I don't want anybody to feel bad if they've written me something, because chances are your letters never went through this process. But we would get our fan mail on Andromeda on like Mondays, right? And we'd come to set with the best ones, the funniest ones. And Gord had one from a guy who was in prison who would write out Spanish love songs and their translations in English, and then the English love songs and their translations in Spanish to Gord. And the best part about it is he said that while he was in prison, he was taking a course. And in order to pass the course, he needed the home address and telephone number of a famous person. So could Gord help him out? We're like, what is the course? Stalking 101? And this is what they teach in jail? We think he was lying about that one. I don't know. Lisa Ryder got some great ones, especially by people who claimed that she had stolen the Eureka Maru. There's one guy who had claimed that she had stolen the Eureka Maru from him, and he wanted it back. Yeah, I got a letter from a guy it was a very nice letter. He was a prison warden. This is the interesting thing. So he was a prison warden and had written out, illuminated manuscripts, like the Book of Kells and stuff like that. I mean, it's incredible artwork. So he had done that with aromatherapy recipes. Things you wouldn't think that go together. The prison warden who's really up on his illumination and aromatherapy oils. And he did offer to give me a tour of the prison should I ever be in town.
I'm kind of guessing you just have never gotten around to that.
No, I haven't. But in a strange way, it would be very interesting. Things that you wouldn't know about a person, I'm sure if you looked at the man, you wouldn't know that he was that up on his aromatherapy and illumination skills.
Any other questions from the audience? Oh, there we go.
Hello. Yeah, actually, Lisa is in some ways a lot like Becca Valentine, funnily enough, only more responsible. Not that Becca's irresponsible, but that whole flash thing, drug addiction thing that Becca had, Lisa does not have. And Laura is the person I want to be when I grow up. Because she's genuinely, the funny thing is in our business, you meet nice people that really actually aren't very nice. They just seem very nice. Laura is genuinely one of the nicest people I've ever known in my life, the most sort of educated, and educated about current events as well, and active in that realm, and mature. Just basically everything I kind of want to be when I grow up. I haven't gotten there yet, even though she's younger than me. But she's awesome. And Gord's great. I've known Gord since I was 18 when I did a hosting gig with him on YTV. And Steve Basic is hilarious. He played Roddenberry. He's a hoot and a half. Keith, I don't know what Keith is up to these days, but he was miserable. In a nice way. Like, I mean, it's just Keith. He was brooding. Tyr came by that brooding quality, fairly honestly. I don't know which came first, Keith or Tyr. Kevin was, like I said, captain of the football team. Brandy Ledford was lovely. She was a lot of fun to work with. It was fun to actually be able to work with Brandy when I finally came back in season 5. Who else was on the show? Brent State is probably one of the most talented actors I've ever known, so it was sad when he had to go. Who else am I missing? Anyone? Harper? Gord Wolvitt, yes. And he's, like I said, he's great. He does a lot of, he's a very, very funny guy.
So, you used to host a video game show. Are you a gamer?
No. I was, like, years ago before I had children, not like on a game system, because I can't, my thumbs and I don't understand. But I used to play like Dungeons and Dragons type games on my computer. I think the last one I played was Baldur's Gate. And apparently my brother informed me that Baldur's Gate has a really great iPad game, which I have avoided downloading because I can't afford to lose that much of my life. Was there another question? Did I see a hand somewhere?
We were getting the 5-minute warning sign. Oh, down here?
Hello. Yeah, totally. Are you kidding? Michael and I have tried to kind of like sort of sell them on the whole D&D thing. It's not working. I figure we need to become like really crazy, straight-laced, conservative, right-wing type suit-wearing people for our children to rebel. I'm terrified that my children are going to, rebel by becoming incredibly well, actually, no, that should be a good thing. Incredibly responsible suit-wearing automatons. We've tried. So far, not yet. They're not really interested, but they do love games. I mean, they do love to play those kind of games on the computer.
How old are your kids?
14, 8, and 7.
Oh, fun ages.
Yeah. Yeah, teenage daughter. Woohoo.
No conflicts.
No, you know what? That's the toughest thing. I think anybody here, who's a parent in this room? Okay, yeah, so you can feel my pain. The hardest thing about parenting is actually playing referee.
Yeah.
That's the thing that drives me mental.
Right. Other questions? Oh, well,
Hello.
at the top there.
I really enjoy playing Sonia. It's a challenge. It is definitely a challenge. I'm really looking forward to her having more to do. I know what's coming up for her, and I'm really looking forward to it. Of course, I can't talk about it. I will get in trouble. But stay tuned for the second season. It's quite a ride, and there's quite a few mind-bendy kind of moments in it. I also happen to know who Alex's father is, but I can't tell you.
Ooh. There's a question in the middle
I'm
here.
not telling.
With Shanks, I want to have this vision of, just like staff weapons and stuff lying around your house. Did you get to keep anything cool from Andromeda? Like, did you have a cool prop or something you get to keep?
I kept the red sort of jumpsuit thing that I had, and my Force Lance. But other than that, I didn't. Michael, I think, absconded with the red phone from General Landry's office. And this is the best part, my kids don't entirely get it because, of course, it's a corded phone, right? Right. And they're like, what is this? It's like, are these phones from back in the olden days? And I'm like, shut up. And I think he kept half of his wardrobe, which he just wears. It's got holes. Like all of his fatigues and everything have holes in them because he just wears them around the house doing gardening.
Down here?
No, I don't pop it in for nostalgia reasons. I'll pop it in because my kids will periodically go, well, what's Andromeda? And I'll pop it in, and they become disinterested in 5 minutes. But they may get back into it later, because I remember trying to get my kids to watch Star Wars 2 years ago, and they weren't interested, and now they're obsessed with it. So, but no, not really, because it was so long ago. And I have this thing about watching my own performances where I'll watch something that I've done and just cringe and think about all the other things I could have done and how I would have done it better now and that sort of stuff. So that's just an exercise in self-flagellation for me to watch my own work. Yes? I read, and it's usually after I've yelled at my kids for the third time about going to bed. Just put your head on your pillow, close your eyes, and sleep. It's not that hard. I can do it. Yeah, I do read. I read. And I catch up on tragic gossip sites because it requires no brain cells.
What are you reading right now?
What am I reading? I've got like 4 or 5 books on the go. I'm trying to get through Game of Thrones.
Which book?
The first one. It being Game of Thrones. The first one. And it's just, what was the other one that I read recently, which I can't remember the name out of? I've got like 75 books on my iPad, so I literally hop back and forth between them. I think I actually, last week, because I was trying to explain to I think it was my 14-year-old, it was my 8-year-old, about Sweet Valley High. Did anybody read those books? Right. So they have them in the iBooks, in the iTunes bookstore. Yeah, so, and okay, they have like the continuation. So when the twins, for those of you that really don't care, it's about these twins and it's about 1 millimeter deep. But these twins, when they're 30, so I bought that book, tragically. I'm not proud, but I'm like, what are they up to? I read that one recently. It was the Sweet Valley in their 30s. Oh my God, see, it went to that place? I just stopped after high school. Yeah. Oh my word. Oh, crazy talk. Oh my gosh, Sweet Valley Saga.
We got time for one more question.
With Continuum, I imagine the writers have a long-term plan. You clearly know what's going on in season 2, but have they let you in to what they want to do in the future? Or are they kind of keeping that?
They have, when I spoke to Simon Barry, because they keep their cards very close to their chest. And part of it is actually respect for the actors, because I know, for example, Rachel prefers to be on a need-to-know basis. She doesn't want to know too much. That's just her process as an actor. So I had to seek out Simon and say, okay, no, I need to know everything, because I'm just like that. I need to know. And he told me a fair bit, which I cannot talk about, but it is very interesting. And what he said to me was that they do have a plan. They've basically got probably somewhere in a 5-year plan, but they don't have all the details. But they know the sort of the main sort of posts that they want to get to along the way, and are making their way there. So, you know, they still have to rough out their stories and hash them out in the writer's room at the beginning of the season. So it is pretty neat. So the scripts are still a surprise when they come out.
Are most of the shows like that they've got a long-range plan but not the details? Or some of them like, oh, I don't know, Battlestar Galactica, where they just seem to be making it up as they go along? Just an editorial comment.
I think they try to be, you know, they try to sort of have, because, you know, it's good, you don't start a journey without knowing where it is that you're going. But, you know, everybody hopes to have a nice long-running show that they, you know, find, oh, we got picked up another season, so I'm going to pull, you know, that your end goal becomes farther and farther away. And then suddenly, you know, as happened on shows, the plug gets pulled, and then you've got to pull everything back.
Lexa, thank you so much. We are out of time.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
We look forward to seeing what happens on Continuum.
Me too.
And
Woohoo!
Arctic Air.
Tune in. Hey, and if you come by to get an autograph, you can get a free Continuum postcard. The publicity department gave me those to hand out. Okay, take care.